UC in the cloud is presumably a more elastic kind of a solution. You can, no need to turn up or down major parts of your infrastructure. You can simply react. And things like rolling out additional offices or users is really further simplified. And then, of course, security, end-to-end encryption. The promise of higher security, I think, has been met by the UC providers in the marketplace. These are some of the big reasons why customers have been looking at UC solutions in the cloud. Now I want to shift, though, and talk about what organizations are finding, because this is a market where there are a lot of entrants. There are some mature solutions. And when we talk with customers, we hear what they're finding is a few things. First of all, that promise of agility, really being able to tailor their unified communications environment and being able to build the environment that matches up with their end users' specific needs, even specific line of business users' needs. But there are actually limits to that. I won't get into competitor solutions at this point, but if you look at a lot of what's available in the marketplace today, that promise of integration and easy tailoring, it's not so easy. We hear that from clients every day. Of course, there are UC solutions in the cloud that are easy to acquire. Generally speaking, there are service providers in the marketplace who are really not necessarily able to meet critical service levels. We'll talk a little bit about some of the industries that we serve. There's some of the most demanding and discerning clients and industries that require a very high level of support. What we've heard from customers is these solutions that are really built for the broader marketplace, that are for commerce in general, industry in general, are not necessarily set up to meet critical service needs of industries like legal, financial services, healthcare, and some of the industries that we cater to. And what we've found, this one's kind of shocking, is that there are providers in the marketplace who are actually not on the same technology that they're deploying for their customers, right? They're using on-prem voice solutions, yet they're selling UC solutions in the cloud. That's a little odd. Ron, you've got a raised hand. Go ahead.
Just as an analogy, we just got a verbal today from a large professional services client that has been on a cloud service, and this is for context, for over 10 years, a unified communications cloud service, and it is one of the larger manufacturers that you all know about. They were not introduced IM&P. So they have not been introduced any type of instant messaging and presence platform by that provider in 10 years. So it's surprising to us, but it is happening out there.
Yeah. So, like I said at the top, rather than this being a one-way conversation, we want to have a little bit of dialogue. So we're going to stop for a moment. And I'm curious, I want to ask those on the line here, what have you found? If you've had an opportunity to dig into unified communications solutions in the cloud, maybe recently over the last few years, what have you found to be the case? What's been surprising, disappointing, or what have been some of the things that have been really good as you've looked into the market? So again, the question, what are you finding when you look out into the marketplace for UC solutions in the cloud? I'll be quiet, I'll allow some silence, and I'll let our first bold participant or two jump in with a question, either live or via chat. Who's going to be bold enough to jump in with a thought?
I think it's got to be Andrea.
This is a small enough group, right? A small enough group where we can call people out, and we're not above that. Andrea, thoughts? Don? Oh, I think we need to help Andrea unmute.
There we go. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Wow. Good to see everyone. So what I've found in speaking with providers is they don't provide a one-stop shop, which I really think would be valuable if they did. And so as we take a look at our service providers and try to consolidate, that would be, that would be my hope, is that those solutions, we can go to that service provider for a one-stop shop for everything.
Tell us
When you say,
what you mean. Go ahead. I think Ron and I are going to ask the same question. So,
no, Matt, all you.
okay. Just tell us more, Andrea. When you say one-stop shop, what do you mean exactly?
Well, we're looking for UC solutions, somebody also to help us across the spectrum, provide us not only the network side and experience, but full implementation, but also a product suite option, so that it's not just a siloed approach, that we've got options for expertise and options for solutions.
Okay, got it. Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
What else? Who else has some findings or even questions about what you're seeing in the marketplace?
Mario? Right.
All right, we'll press on. Like I mentioned, Lou has got his eagle eye on the chat box here. So if there's a question or a thought you want to just throw it in. If you're having any difficulty getting unmuted, let him know. We'll press on. But if along the way you have a question or a thought, please just jump right in. This is an intimate enough group where we can do that. So Ron, we've heard a little bit about, we talked a little bit about what people are finding in the marketplace. We've got Andrea's contribution, which is great. Let me give the floor to you now. We'll talk a little bit more about services excellence.
Actually, Matt, I think Brian wanted to say something. Brian, you're unmuted now.
Thanks very much. No, we just really, in the last couple of months, started looking at this. And, we look around, we listen to a lot of different people. And we completely agree. You need a partner, and I'll say like Fidelus, that sees the whole picture and helps tailor the offerings to your needs instead of just throwing a blanket out there. The one other thing that I've noticed, or just as we look into it, is that it seems like at this point it's a lot more costly than it is for our premise equipment. Now, we've had our premise equipment for about 3 or 4 years now, so it's not depreciated or anything. That makes a difference as well. So that was it.
Thank you, Brian. So I'm going to jump right in. And fortunately, on this call, we have clients like Brian and like Don and like Mario that have helped us become the services partner that we are today. And one of the things that has been a major focus has been services excellence over the last 18 years. And really every day we strive to get better and better. And hopefully over the next few minutes on my section talk, we're going to illustrate where some of that service excellence comes from. And again, anyone who works with us or anyone who doesn't on the phone, feel free to jump in and interrupt me at any time. I know we have a handful of clients here as well, so I may even go through this faster than I normally would. So moving on. We have been focusing on, and this is, we're going to talk about some key differentiators, unified communications and collaboration for 18 years. And for the first 6 of those years, we focused on professional and managed services only. And this has really forced us in that time to be highly consultative. So a lot of our competitors came from selling hardware first. We came the other way, which is a focus on services. And one of the people who has made us better over the years and continues to make us better is Mario Danza, who was on the phone. And one of our first clients, roughly 18 years ago, was a law firm called Thatcher, Prophet and Wood, where Mario worked. And that was just historically, piece of historic information here. They were at the time the largest law firm in the New York City area to migrate to Cisco Unified Communications. So there's your call out, Mario. Moving on.
Thanks, Rob.
Hey, love you. So the other thing that this drove us to do is have a business vertical focus. And where we started to focus was not only on legal, but also accounting and healthcare and financial services. Often we bundle legal accounting into professional services, and healthcare are our predominant verticals. Focusing on the business and understanding those businesses and being able to tie those business requirements to the specific technology that we deploy allowed us to punch above our weight. And as Matt mentioned before, those types of companies, legal, accounting, and healthcare, do require, as you all know, a very high level of service. So moving on. And after 6 years, which was about the 2007-8 timeframe, we started to do two things differently. One is we added a procurement practice because our clients said, hey, we're leveraging you for professional services, leveraging you for managed services. Every time you guys do a design, you put a bill of materials together and you go and ask us to shop that out. Can we just buy the equipment from you? To which we said yes and started that procurement practice. And we also started a software development practice. And some of you, we have worked on software development. Some of you, we haven't. But one of the first projects we did, and I'll just touch on it, was for a large professional services firm named Ernst & Young, who was also one of our first clients. And they were a hoteling client. And maybe this we can use to also plant a seed, because we're in a new world right now. I know we're tired of hearing that phrase. I asked Mario early in the call what the plan is for people to come back to his offices. And I didn't hear anything differently from Mario than we've been hearing from a lot of our clients, which is, we don't know, we're going to wait and see. And we're the same way. And I am extremely confident that this will change within legal, within healthcare, working as we know it. And specifically commercial real estate, companies will need much smaller footprints because they're confident about the quality of work that their user populations can do from home. And everybody who's in legal on the phone right now, not maybe you necessarily, but I'm sure a lot of partners at your firm never believed that attorneys can do their work at home. And now they're finding that they can. And the reason I bring that up when I'm talking about the EY example, because EY has been hoteling for 15 to 20 years. And specifically what that means is they have a platform where when users move from office to office and travel from office to office, they essentially choose a desk or an area to work. And Ernst & Young had 100 sites in the United States, and they adjusted that real estate based on reservation. So they could look at that hoteling system and see how much of that space is reserved in New York, how much of that space is reserved in Philadelphia, how much of that space is reserved in Minneapolis, and make real estate adjustments, either compressing or expanding their real estate based on reservation. And Ernst & Young was a professional services client of ours and a managed services client of ours. And we knew they were working on this project. And we said, well, isn't the important number or variable utilization, not reservation? Because we all know people reserve conference rooms and sometimes places to sit and never show up. And they said, absolutely, if there's a 5 or 10% difference in reservation and utilization, that could be millions and millions of savings if we make those decisions based on utilization versus reservation. So we built middleware for them that sat between Cisco's unified communications environment and their hoteling system that allowed them to report weekly, monthly on utilization instead of reservation. The way we did that is people walked into an office, it said, welcome, Andrea Markstrom, on the display of their phone. Press this button when you arrive. If Andrea presses the button in New York, her Minneapolis number comes up, her extension profile comes up. If she doesn't, 15 minutes later, it releases the reservation and tells the system Andrea didn't show up in the office. And that gives them the ability to report on utilization. And they saved millions and millions of dollars on this solution, and they still use it today. So moving on. In addition to custom development, Akkadian Labs developed a provisioning tool, which is extremely important when we talk about features and functionality and end user adoption, an attendant console, and a global directory. In 2013, we spun our software development team, sales, support, into a separate company called Akkadian Labs. And they are now a sister company of ours. And the reason I bring this up, specific to services excellence and differentiation, is there would be no Akkadian Labs if we weren't paying very close attention to how do we really impact the business of our clients? How do we streamline their workflow versus we're just going to give you voice and voicemail? Because that is really not what we're here to do. We're here to provide rich, unified communications experience, and where possible, let's tie that core infrastructure into business applications where possible. So if anyone has any ideas, Brian, Andrea, Margaret, Don, Mario, about ways we could do that in your environments, please feel free to share them. And moving on. So of course, in addition to development and some turnkey applications from our sister company, we do provide the full Cisco UC stack, which is voice, voicemail, instant messaging and presence, E911 solutions, contact center solutions, WebEx Teams and WebEx Meetings, covers web collaboration and persistent chat, all secure and end-to-end. So Andrea, when you talk about one stop, this covers the UCC stack. And of course, what we think is almost even more important than the product itself is the service around it. Because this other company that was serving a new client of ours also provided Cisco UC, but they didn't have a high quality of service behind it. And that client really never heard from their vendor. So that white glove service is what our real differentiator is. And an example of that, and as we bring up this example, I do want to thank Brian and Don and Mario. This year, we had 50% of our managed services clients come up for renewal, which is a very, very large number. A lot of those came up after March. We have so far year to date a 100% renewal rate. And what that speaks to, from my perspective, is the skill set of our team, and that when we are imperfect and when we make a mistake, we address it the right way. We listen to you, Mario. We listen to you, Brian, and the rest of our clients, and we make those adjustments to become better and better every day. Now, we don't always win all of our renewals. Over the last 18 years, we've had a handful that have left, and many within those handful have come back. One of us this past February, who wrote this very nice email to us, which we took this quote from, and they had moved away from us to go to a much, much larger provider that was for a lower cost. And they found out after a few years on their service that it was untenable. And they came back to us and immediately saw a difference in the service. And with that, I will hand it over to the one and only, the legend, Josh Ryman, our Chief Technology Officer, to go over another differentiator. Josh.
That pesky mute button. Thank you both for the great presentation so far. So I want to kind of readdress one point that Matt had made earlier, in that we found that some providers out there, surprisingly, are not using their own service. That's something that we are extremely proud to say. Not only are we using the service ourselves, but the platform on which we're running it, we're the only Cisco partner who's using it ourselves. So that's a very interesting thing to keep in mind, that we internally have really this strategy and idea of making sure that we use everything our clients use to ensure you're getting the best possible service. And this is something that we were very adamant about, that we would be our own first client.
And just for educational purposes, if we could go back, we have an offering that this overview is about, and the name of the offering is Enterprise UCaaS, which is a cloud-based unified communications solution that is built on Cisco's technology. Cisco's name for that, for what they're providing partners, is UCM Cloud. So we're offering our service through UCM Cloud. It's essentially their infrastructure with our service wrapped around it. And when we say we're the only company running on it, it means out of all the other partners who are providing a service through UCM Cloud, we are the only partner that is running Fidelus and our sister company, Akkadian Labs, on that platform in the world. So I think that that's also very telling too.
So that, yeah, thank you. So that to me is a very big, important piece to the way that we run our business and service our clients. Again, we want to make sure everyone's getting the best possible service, and we find the best way to do that is to experience it ourselves. In addition to that, there are a few different other pieces that differentiate Fidelus. First is we're utilizing a model that Cisco offers called Partner Connected, which allows for a faster, easier, and cleaner turn up to the solution. So we're able to bring this to you in a shorter time frame. Another piece to this, and this is, I think part of one of the appeals of going to any as-a-service model, is ease of use of the platform from a management standpoint and overall operating. We're providing a single pane of glass for management that'll give you a single portal to have access to open support tickets, manage your end users, provisioning, and all the other pieces that will come into play here. It's simplified, it's easy, and it should continue to further reduce your operating costs. Because the solution is an enterprise class solution, it gives us the ability to continue operating with third-party integrations. That could be anything from existing PBXs for migration purposes, or if you have multiple regions and you're only going to migrate one region, to third-party applications. There's a bunch of them out there, so it's kind of hard to name them all, but we are able to do that in very much the same manner as what you may have with on-prem today. And lastly, again, we can't stress this enough. We are a services first company, and we have this white glove commitment with top tier response times. For those of you who utilize our managed services today, you've experienced this. Our team is really all focused on striving to provide, again, the best level of service possible. And that is not just a matter of technical know-how, which we have in great depth, but also in communicating with our clients and making sure that you're up to date on any open items that you may have. Part of this solution, again, is focused on simplicity. And to do that, we have two simple tiers. Our first one is what we call our managed solution. And this is somewhat of an all-inclusive solution. It comes with everything you need for the base price per user. You're going to get all the base functionality that you get with Unified Communications Manager. In addition to that, you're going to get custom directories that are available on a number of different devices, that single pane of glass management I mentioned. It's going to also include the management and monitoring of the solution, all the upgrades and lifecycle management that's required to keep the system up to date. We're not just a technical company, as I mentioned. We are also services, as we continue to stress. And that means we're going to keep having our conversations with you, make sure that you're up to date on the solution, that we're continuing to get feedback from you, and that you are able to voice your opinion on what you like, what you don't like. We do that through quarterly business reviews. We want to make sure, again, that communication continues to be open, and that will be in addition to any regular cadence that you may have with the managed services team. And last, and this is one of the things that comes out of that QBR cycle, is we're going to make sure we introduce you to new features as they come out. Again, as Ron mentioned before, one of the clients that's out there, 10 years they hadn't been introduced to IM&P. We don't want that to happen to you. We want to make sure you're aware of the options and you pick the most relevant to your business to help continue moving forward. And last is kind of one of the other pieces that can often complicate solutions like this is any hardware and licensing. That is all included in the solution. And the last piece I want to highlight is the idea of SIP trunks. You can bring your own SIP. We want you to bring your own SIP. You can have them live on premise. We can work out solutions so they come into our data centers. But they're your numbers. You should own them. You can have your carrier of choice. We'll work with you to make sure that you're getting the service you need on both ends. And a second tier, as I mentioned, there are two simple tiers. That's the first one. The second one is basically Fidelus can do all of your MACD work for you. In the first tier, you'll have that single portal, that single pane of glass portal in which you can do your provisioning. It's all template based, and we're leveraging our Akkadian Labs provisioning manager product. If you want Fidelus to do all the MACD work for you, that's not a problem. That's our second tier, and we can work through that as we have discussions. That was the base service offering. In addition to that, we understand every organization has different needs above and beyond putting a phone on a user's desk. So we have some additional options that you can use to tailor the solution to your own needs. First and foremost is you have to get on the solution. So we provide the same white glove service for bringing you on the solution for the migration process as we have in the past. The project team is dedicated. They're extremely knowledgeable, and they will walk you through every aspect of the solution, ensuring you understand what each feature is going to do, how it will perform, and work with you to tailor it again to the needs of your organization and even down to the individual user if need be. Training is an extremely important part of what we do. From a technical standpoint, if everything can be perfect, if people don't know how to use the system, it's not going to be perceivable. So we like to make sure that training is always a part of every solution that's put out there. We can do in-person training, which is our more traditional model, or we can do remote training, which we've done in the past, and certainly more in recent times that has become the de facto training method. In either case, we have been successful in educating the users. It is a live training session. They get to try everything out during that time and ask the questions they need. And we want to make sure that experience is as good as possible so the users can hit the ground running when the solution goes live. If need be, we can provide resources to do any physical deployment of the hardware. Typically, that's going to be the phones, but we can work with you on that if that's something you like. We can integrate with your existing PBX, as I mentioned earlier. That can assist in migration over a period of time. Or if you have multiple PBXs where you only plan to migrate some, that might be a necessary solution. Contact center services. Again, a lot of organizations have contact center services at the very least for their help desk, but it can certainly be broadened beyond that, and we can add that in. We also have secure faxing solutions. So if you have physical fax machines today, there's a solution for that built in, and it would just be an add-on per device. However, if you want to go more of an eFax type solution where it's done from the PC, we can leverage that as well. And the reason this is listed as secure faxing is it is completely encrypted, again, like the rest of the solution. And it actually, the way we've been able to do this is we're partnering with another organization to work with them, and it makes it a lot easier to use all around. And we can integrate that with your physical machines as well. So I've gone through a lot. At this point, it's a high-level overview of what the solution includes. Ron spoke to you about our services capabilities and our unbreakable dedication to our client success. And Matt mentioned again, we want to keep this interactive. So does anyone have any questions on the solution, how we're going to deliver the service, or anything in general about what we've learned so far?
Josh, we'll allow a little bit of time for people to either put a question in through chat or ask live. I have a question I'm going to hold for a moment that I'm going to ask you, Josh. Be forewarned.
Sure.
Because I think there's something.
Thank you, Matt.
I'm putting myself in everyone else's shoes, and I think there are some things I'd love to hear from you, being a CTO who's deployed UCaaS yourself, right? So I'll come back to that question. So are there any questions or reaction to anything that Ron or Josh have shared over the course of the last 15 minutes or so? Please do jump in and ask live or ask via chat.
Yes, and if you're having trouble unmuting yourself, just let us know in chat and we'll help you out.
Ron, I think you're muted if you were saying something there.
Margaret, I understand you're in the middle of a very large integration, which I hear is a fun project. UC and everything else.
Yeah, no. So, I joined the call this morning just to see what Fidelus's offering was. We've worked with you guys before for professional services, upgrades and things like that. I don't know if my management has engaged you guys at all, or if they're even thinking about hosting the voice platform. That's way above my pay grade, but I'm curious to see what you have to offer if that's the direction they're looking at. But yes, you are correct. We recently merged with another law firm at the beginning of this year. We've doubled in size, and that's one of the big projects that we have coming up. It's been a bit delayed, as you can imagine, but we need to converge our two voice platforms together. We're both Cisco customers and pretty much using the same applications for the most part, but we need to come into one.
Well, thank you for joining to learn about the service. And we did speak to, or do speak to Dan. And of course, I don't think the cloud is on the short-term roadmap just because of the merger and the integration. But definitely, want to continue to build our relationship with Figure Drinker.
Correct. Yeah,
So,
we're looking for you guys to assist on the professional services end.
Yeah. Well,
That's
thank
great.
you.
Appreciate
Thank you for
that. Yeah. So one of the things.
So, actually, Matt, before you go, we actually have a question from Mario.
Great.
Mario, I've unmuted you. Oh, I tried to. All right, you're unmuted, so we can discuss this further if you like. But Mario's question was, how are we connecting the prem solution to the cloud? There's a few different ways that we'll be connecting in. The default method is using SD-WAN. So we will put a pair of routers that have multifunction services on them to use SD-WAN back to our data centers. that will be the connection back for your organization from your internal standpoint. If you wanted to add more than 2, that's doable as well. That's not a problem. For folks outside the office, which is a little more prevalent today, we're able to leverage MRA. So that's mobile remote access. It's a technology from Cisco that's been around for a while that lets you connect in securely from anywhere with a good enough internet connection to have voice, video, the instant messaging functionality, and so on.
For the MRA side, do you have redundancies? Is there 2 different
Yes.
clusters?
Yeah, there's redundancy there. Everything in this is spread across 2 data centers, and that provides us, they're active. It provides us the ability to, in that sort of use one and still operate without any limited capabilities.
Do you have data center access in Asia? Because we're currently moving out of Hong Kong into Singapore, and we need to build out in that location, the Singapore location. But if there was a cloud option in that region, that might be worthwhile to look into.
Yeah, the service is available in that region. We can take it offline to go through some more details, but that is an option.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. It was a good question. Thank you. And actually, I should add to that, in addition to SD-WAN, if there were organizations that wanted something a little more dedicated, we also can work with you to bring up some kind of private circuit, MPLS point-to-point. We're flexible on that. But the primary transport is SD-WAN, and for those of you who have not had an experience with SD-WAN yet, it is a fantastic, phenomenal technology, and it's really gained a lot of traction over the last couple of years. We don't have a dedicated WAN ourselves anymore. That's what our business is running on.
So Josh, it's exactly that sort of insight. I know, with you being involved in this little panel here, putting myself in everyone else's shoes, I want to ask you a question that I didn't plan to ask you.
Actually, Matt, I'm sorry to cut in. We did have a question from Andrea.
Oh, great.
She mentioned that we're in the process of merging our firms and are currently an on-prem Cisco environment, but looking to move to cloud. Does the cloud option integrate with MS Teams?
So Andrea, great question, and I had muted you so we can discuss if you like. Yes, the short answer is yes, it does integrate with Microsoft Teams. And that's something that, we'll be doing with some of the firms we're discussing with right now. As you can imagine, if everything were all Cisco, it's a more seamless operation. In my opinion, it's a better experience, but it does work very well with Microsoft Teams.
Great. Let's talk further about that.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Thank
Actually
you.
works better than it has in the past with Microsoft integrations, I'm happy to say.
That's good news. Thank you.
Sure.
So are there, I am now also paying attention to the chat box. I don't think I'm going to be interrupting anybody. I apologize. But what I was saying was, Josh, you're a CTO. You're responsible for our technology infrastructure, right? So you've been talking for the last 10 or 15 minutes as a provider of services in a company in Fidelus that, explaining our solution, but you are a customer, right? A user of the solution. What would you say are the top 2 or 3 lessons learned based on our own deployment and what it takes to support and manage UCaaS from an IT leader's perspective?
That's a really good question. So the first thing that comes to mind really isn't necessarily new to UCaaS, but it's still relevant today. And that is, keeping your data clean, right? So the old adage of garbage in, garbage out. I'm sure all of us who have had our systems for a while, there are things in there that need to be cleaned up that just never were. One of the things I really found advantageous of moving to the way that we're providing the solution is because it's all template driven, you can stick to standards. And it's still on someone to delete old users and manage the MACD, but everything at the very least is going to be standardized very well. one user is set up in one way, you know that the rest of the users are going to be set up in that same way. And that's something we find is really helpful for troubleshooting and reducing the number of incidents that we have to manage. You know, as Matt mentioned, we are both the consumer and the provider. And as the consumer, we have the same pitfalls that everyone else has in that regard. You know, just ensuring that things continue to stay tidy. And this has really helped quite a bit. That's probably one of the first things that comes to mind. The others is, you know, in the past, having to manage the hardware, turn it over as it gets old and needs to be refreshed, having to deal with the upgrades, all that back end stuff. This is something that, you know, when I put my customer hat on, I don't have to worry about it. The team just tells me this is when it's going to happen. I agree to it, and it's taken care of. That to me is another bonus. It also makes sure that we're always up to date. We're not waiting until the last minute before a certain version is going end of life to scramble and get it upgraded. We stay on the latest and greatest without being too leading edge. Although since Fidelus is both the customer and the partner, we keep ourselves as up to date as possible. Again, to make sure that we catch any concerns before any clients do.
Great. Okay. So we're coming up to the end of our time. We've just got a couple of minutes. If there are any other kind of last questions or thoughts, I'll speak for a moment and give some time for you to send any last questions in. But if we've shared anything, or if you would love to hear more from Josh about his experience with our own deployment, or to catch up with Ron, or to just really to get to know a little bit more about what the team is up to, I simply wanted to make it easy for you to get in touch with one of us. My contact information is on screen. Some of you are active clients of ours. We've got some of our client directors on the line with us right now. So I know that you know how to reach them. But we'd love to continue the conversation. We know that some of you had plans to get into a serious evaluation of UC solutions in the cloud, and we would love and appreciate if you would include Fidelus in those considerations. But in the end, we are here to serve and add value. If there's anything that we can do to help you to think of creative ways to solve problems or address kind of new opportunities to better support your business, I want you all to feel not only free but encouraged to come to Ron, to Josh, to myself, to your client director if you're working with us already, because we're here to help. Right? We're here to solve problems and help customers achieve things that they might not otherwise be able to do. And for those of you who already trust us, and we love your support, glad we could join together to have this conversation. And with that, Ron, I'm going to give you the floor to say kind of a final thanks and farewell for now.
Thank you and farewell for now. Margaret, thanks for joining. Andrea, Brian, John Guy, we used to work with years ago from Memorial Sloan Kettering. Mario, thank you all for joining. It was great touching base, and look forward to hopefully seeing faces in the future.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
All right.
everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of the Wednesday, everybody.